show you how to make strawberry shortcake because it's delicious and because the weather's getting warmer and it is a summer favorite here at our house. So you need to get strawberries out first. We're gonna start with strawberries. You need sugar, you need a little bit of jam. I use raspberry jam, but you can use strawberry jam or blackberry, or you can leave this out if you don't have any jam. And then we're gonna make 8 biscuits today, so we're gonna use the big container of strawberries. This is 32 ounces or 4 cups, but you can buy the smaller size and do half this amount. So I pre-cut some strawberries because I watch a lot of cooking shows and they usually don't make you sit through all of the preparation. We're gonna slice them kind of small so that they get juicier that way. And I cut, I don't know if my cameraman can see me. I cut the top off first and then kind of just save what I can around the stem part and then lay it flat. And these are pretty big strawberries, so I cut them a few times in both directions. I do it with strawberries before the biscuits because you want them to get juicy while they sit. So like you might marinate meat for a little while. It's called macerating the berries, and they'll get juicy and sugary and be a little bit more like a strawberry sauce instead of just pieces of strawberry on your shortcakes. So you slice them just a few times so that you've got big-ish chunks. I have another small bowl here because we'll put some in there and kind of mash them up. Okay, so you have your big bowl of cut up strawberries. Again, this was 32 ounces, but you could do half this amount and then just half everything else that you do. So I would just take some of them, there's no like set amount, maybe like a third of the amount of strawberries. And then I just use a fork and kind of mash them up to get them smaller. And you have them all mashed up, and you just put them back in with your other ones. The jam just also kind of helps make it saucy, but you certainly don't need this if you don't have any jam. Strawberry shortcakes are super simple to make, but you can jazz them up a little bit. So I do like 3 tablespoons for the 32 ounce amount. Again, if you're doing less than that, you can do less of this. For 32 ounces of berries, a half a cup of sugar. So a 1/4 cup if you do the smaller container. Keep that in. So you're gonna mix it all around. It has to sit for at least, I would say, half an hour, but it can sit for a lot longer than that if you have more time to wait. I would store it in the fridge for at least a half an hour, and then we'll come back and do the biscuit part. Okay, so now we're making the biscuits. The strawberries are macerating together in the fridge. You need flour and sugar, baking powder and baking soda. You need 10 tablespoons of butter. That's 1 whole stick plus 2 more tablespoons. This is for 8 biscuits. You need buttermilk, but if you don't have buttermilk or you can't find it, you can make your own buttermilk. You can just use about a tablespoon of lemon juice or a tablespoon of vinegar and then use the rest milk, or you can just use whole milk probably and your biscuits will be fine. And then cornstarch, if you have it, great. If not, again, you can just replace what we use with more flour and your biscuits will be fine. So you start with 2 cups of flour, and whether you're pulling it from a flour bag or pulling it from a container of flour, spooning and leveling flour is kind of a science in baking because usually if you just like dig your whole cup into it, you're gonna get way too much. So you kind of dump it in loosely, and then I use the back of a knife or something straight and just kind of like knock it around gently and swipe off the top so that you get a perfect amount. Are meant to be a dessert biscuit, but they're not supposed to be super sweet. So you use just a couple of tablespoons of sugar. You're gonna put all your dry ingredients together, mix them around. 1 tablespoon of baking powder. Usually with this kind of stuff too, I will dump it in and then level it off. So 3 tablespoons of cornstarch. If you don't have it, you can just do 3 more tablespoons of flour. This just gives your biscuit kind of a nice texture, but if you don't have it, it's not vital. So you do 3 of those, or just 3 more tablespoons of flour if you don't have it. A 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. I use kosher salt when I'm baking, but if you're gonna use table salt, usually just use a little bit less than what the baking recipe calls for. So for 8 biscuits, we're gonna do 3/4 of a teaspoon. And if you're just using the table salt, like from a salt shaker, you might just do a 1/2. That's all the dry ingredients. And you just kind of mix them around or use your whisk. What we're gonna do is cut in butter, which is my least favorite part. But we basically want to work in the butter to the flour without softening it and keeping it really, really cold. So you're gonna take your butter and get it into small chunks before you even put it in there. So I cut it once and half the other way, and then like a bunch of little small, it doesn't matter what size, but just small bits. So if I'm baking like a cake or cookies, I would use room temperature butter, room temperature milk, room temperature eggs, because you want them all to blend really smoothly. But when you're making like a pie dough or a biscuit or pastry, you actually want your butter to be super, super cold, because then that butter will turn into steam in the oven, give you lots of air pockets and flakiness and deliciousness. So I don't normally do this. I'll just put it in my mixer for a little bit, and those little butter bits will get smaller. But I wanted to make sure you knew how to do it without any fancy tools, so you just can kind of keep working it with your fingers. You want the butter bits to get smaller, but not to totally disappear. Go ahead and start that oven. It's kind of a high temperature for biscuits, 425. You're still gonna have bigger pieces like this, and that's okay that you still have these big chunks. These will actually be good, but for the most part, you can see it's mixed in. It's kind of like sandy, and you have little chunks everywhere, and then you still do have some of those big chunks, but don't worry about breaking them down too much. You don't want your butter to get too warm. So you have all that mixed in, and then you just take your 3/4 cup of buttermilk or whole milk or your homemade buttermilk. So you're gonna mix this around until it's almost completely mixed fully. I don't know if my cameraman is looking at the bowl right now. But you don't wanna keep muscling it until it's totally mixed. You just wanna mix it for a little while. It's gonna seem like you don't have enough liquid. What I would do is make sure your countertop is clean, or make sure you have a piece of parchment paper or something like that that you can put it on. But I would just take this scraggly mix and just get it out of the bowl so that it's on my countertop. So I would do this with scones or pie dough. You really don't wanna work it too much. There's not a lot of liquid, and so you're gonna have to like form them yourself. So at this point, you can make them into a flat rectangle and then use a round cutter and cut them into biscuits. If you have a shape that you want to use, you can try to do that. You can just pull off hunks and make them into drop biscuits. That's totally fine. I'm just gonna kind of cut them into biscuits, and they'll be kind of square-like. So this is gonna make 8 biscuits in half. And this is just what this kind of dough is like, so don't add more flour or anything like that. So I'm just gonna cut it all the way down to there, and then we would get in half. If you must have round biscuits, that's totally fine. You just rip them off and then kind of roll them up. You want those little pieces of butter to still be showing, that's good. And if they're just kind of still scraggly, just kind of shove them back together. So arrange them so that there's a little bit of space. The oven has already preheated, so I'm gonna wash my hands and I'm gonna put these in the oven for about 15 minutes, but I'll probably start checking at 12 just to make sure they're not over baking. Okay, so my biscuits took exactly 15 minutes. You want just a little bit of brown on top and golden on the bottom. You just can kind of press them when they're in the oven. If they give a lot, then they're not done. If they're a little firmer to the touch, they're probably done. The last step should be done probably closer to when you actually want to eat your strawberry shortcake. So you can make the biscuits in advance, and you can make the strawberries the day before. But I probably wouldn't whip your whipped cream until the day you want to have your treat. So for whipped cream, all you need is whipping cream and some sugar. You can use powdered sugar. I use granulated sugar. If you want 2 cups of whipped cream, then you should whip a cup of whipped cream. So it'll double as you whip it. A cup of whipping cream is not gonna get you enough for 8 servings, but we're not gonna eat 8 servings, and it's not gonna last the days that it will take us to eat those 8 servings. So, and by days, I mean like probably 2. So we're gonna put just 1 cup of whipping cream in, and you're not gonna add the sugar yet. So I'm using a hand mixer. So once it kind of gets frothy and you can start seeing the lines of your mixer in there, once it's whipped a little bit past cream stage, then I'll go ahead and add my 2 tablespoons of sugar. So it's 1 cup of cream, 2 tablespoons of sugar. And then you're gonna whip it until you like the consistency. If you whip too long, it's gonna get way too thick. Some people might stop here. This is a pretty loose whipped cream, but some people like the softer, kind of Cool Whippy texture. And then some people like kind of more of the hand whipped cream. It's got a little peak to it. It keeps its form once you kind of pull that out, so it just kind of keeps standing up like that. Those peaks, that's how we prefer the whipped cream. With that done, you could put this in the fridge for a little while. It's not gonna last very long. When Mr. Fraker goes to make himself breakfast with this tomorrow morning, this won't be whipped cream anymore, so you have to kind of re-whip it. And you'll notice that they got a lot saucier in their maceration. So you can see how there's just a lot more strawberry juice and sauce in there, partially from that sugar, making the berries release that juice, and then from the jam. So this will just get saucier as it stays longer. It's only gonna get better, so there's no problem having that for the next day. Cut a biscuit in half, and you can take the biggest one, like I would. Cut that in half. You want to wait until they're cool because your whipped cream is going to melt if you don't. Start with the berries because you want that juice to kind of get in that biscuit, nooks and cranniness. If you don't want a lot of juice on your biscuit, then just take the berries, but if you want some that's going to have some sauce on it, you just scoop that on. Everyone can make their own. Kind of the nice thing about strawberry shortcake. And then take some whipped cream, throw that on there. And then if you're really fancy, you might do another layer. More berries. And a final topping. You can add other fruits if you want, or you can just leave it like so. And that's it. Oh, okay.